O Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Take our minds and think through them. Take our mouths and speak through them. Take our hands and work through them, and take our hearts and set them on fire for Christ's sake. Amen. Okay, so despite my occasional humbuggery about kitschy Christmas music, especially during Advent, I do have a particular favorite that puts me in the Christmas spirit. I especially like the Johnny Mathis version. It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you, be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. And I also have a favorite little-known Christmas movie, Breakfast with Scott. It's about an unlikely and unprepared foster family, Sam and Eric, who are given temporary custody of Scott, a 12-year-old boy whose demeanor and personality are so effeminate that they challenge and threaten this privileged and discreet gay couple's life together. See, Eric is a former hockey star with a reputation for being a tough guy on the ice. And now he's a closeted television reporter for the Canadian equivalent of what do we call it? ESPN. Now, the first night that Scott arrives in their home, we discover that this boy has a love of singing Christmas carols. And he says, it's the happiest season of all, with those holiday greetings and gay happy meetings when friends come to call. It's the happiest season of all. Of course, it's barely October. He's alone in his temporary bedroom in a strange couple's house. And we sense that these carols are really a security blanket. They are the dream of a happy and easy life that Scott clearly hasn't had. And not only does he face daily ridicule for his flamboyant dress, makeup, and behavior, but his mother had died of an overdose. He's been in limbo with child services because his designated legal guardian, Sam's prodigal and self-centered brother, is off in Brazil with a new honey and with no inclination of returning to care for this child. Security blankets, they can be very comforting. Visions of the world as we would like it to be. And perhaps that's what our Christmas carols are for much of us some of the time. Hark, the herald angels sing, God rest you, merry gentlemen, joy to the world. They're all wonderful carols that capture the joy and the festivity of the Christmas season. Well, I mean, what's Christmas without them, right? But the fact is that Christmas is not unlike any other day of the year. Christmas is a season of rather harsh dichotomies. It may be a time of great joy when we rejoice in God's incarnation and gather with our families to celebrate our love for each other and the giving of gifts and sharing of meals. But it's often a time of great sorrow for many, when we feel the absence of loved ones most keenly in the tender corners of our hearts. And today, on this fourth day of Christmas, we remember that Christ's birth was not all sunshine, rainbows, and shepherds with their sheep hearing angels singing alleluias. Christ was born into a dangerous world, where the powerful wielded their violence with impunity and the vulnerable suffered the consequences. King Herod of Judea was not a very popular guy among the people of first century Palestine. They considered his reign illegitimate because he was propped up by a foreign occupying power, Russia. I mean Rome. It was all very #NotMyKing. He ruled without conscience and held on to his illegitimate power by crushing all threats to his authority. Now, of course, we in our own time and place know all too well this kind of powerful evil does not operate alone. Herod was supported by the rich and powerful who benefited from his policies, by soldiers who carried out his violence, and by those who looked the other way because, well, hey, at least the economy was booming, and the people who were hurt by Herod's rule were, those kind of people, the others, not like us. And into that world, Christ was born. Emmanuel, God with us, all of us. God was there with Mary in the pain and the trauma of birth, in the fear, the danger, and the precariousness of Mary's social situation, in the wonder of the mysterious circumstances of her pregnancy, and in that holy moment when the potential became reality, and she held this miraculous child in her arms and nursed him at her breast. God was there with Joseph as he bundled up his new family and fled to Egypt as refugees. And God was there with the mothers and fathers of those children who went hungry, while the rich had plenty, and those infants who were killed to protect the rule of a corrupt politician. God was even there with Herod, if you can bear to believe that. Now, the historical record may be unclear about whether Herod actually called for the slaughter of children. It's possible that Matthew wrote this story of Joseph's dream and the Holy Family's narrow escape in order to reference other stories that were well known to his audience. I mean, Joseph, the flamboyant dreamcoat fame, also received prophetic visions in his dreams, and following them managed to establish temporary safety for his repentant family in Egypt. Now, generations later, however, a new Pharaoh grew fearful about the Israelites who were settled in his land and moved to enslave and exploit them, and eventually ordered the slaughter of all the young boys in the area. And the infant Moses escaped thanks to the quick thinking of his mother, a group of midwives, and even the Pharaoh's own daughter. So, I don't know. Maybe Herod ordered his soldiers to kill every male baby and toddler in Bethlehem. And maybe it's just a literary device. But I don't think it matters. Whether or not Herod signed the death warrant of every male child under the age of 2 around Bethlehem, his lack of conscience and his conscious cruelty certainly caused harm, fear, violence, and death to visit the innocent and the vulnerable among his subjects, whether in the form of insufficient food or dangerous work or excessive taxation of the poor or over-policing, you name it. And Matthew was deliberate in framing the origin story of Jesus as one who was born in an uncertain, dangerous world, not an ideal one. God didn't wait around for a generation that had its act together and a higher sense of virtue per capita than all the others. No, God became incarnate with humanity at a time when humanity was most in need of grace. And it's a story that resonates because our world is not so very different. Easily influenced by corruptible politicians whose primary interest is power, and cynical billionaires who exploit loopholes and turn the gears of government for their own enrichment. And of course, the silent majority willing to ignore all this unpleasantness because, well, they're just tired or cynical, or they just want to return to the days when everything seemed predictable and familiar. And meanwhile, our oceans become acidic. Lakes, rivers, groundwater are polluted by industrial or agricultural waste. Children go hungry. Communities of color are over-policed and incarcerated at staggering rates for for-profit prisons, labor exploited. And despite all of this, Christ is born into our lives. Emmanuel, God with us, with all of us. This incarnation of God with us and in us is an act of God's extraordinary grace, and we clearly haven't earned it. Indeed, we cannot. Nadia Bolz-Weber, a Lutheran pastor, wrote an essay about this grace, specifically about how it's Hail Mary full of grace, not Hail Mary full of virtue. I mean, she didn't earn her position as God's mother by being the most delightful and virtuous woman. Bolz-Weber writes, when Mary sings of God in the Magnificat, she didn't say that God looked with favor upon her virtue. She didn't say that God looked with favor on the fact that she had tried so hard that she had finally become the ideal version of herself. No, God looked with favor on her lowliness. And yet, what do? But constantly curse my own lowliness. Obsess about my flaws, berate myself for my failings, for trying not hard enough to become my ideal self. But our failings and weakness and mistakes are God's favorite entry points. It's our lowliness and our humility, not our strength and not our so-called virtues, where God does God's very best work. I really love that quote. Now, maybe my thinking on all this is screwy, but while I watch politicians turn their backs on precedents and norms and their own recently professed beliefs about right and wrong in order to hold on to power or crush the vulnerable underfoot, and while I live in and benefit from a system that was built on the poisonous foundation of white supremacy, I cannot help but hope that these societal failings and weakness and mistakes will be God's entry points today, where God, through us, can do God's best work. But we must consider that these entry points are individual, too. Because it's easy to be overwhelmed by the enormity of the problems that face us, the ubiquity of holy innocents who are harmed by the evil of this world. I mean, most of us are in this boat. But here, God extends a bit of grace. So it's okay that we don't know what to do, that we falter, that we don't have all the answers. God is with us, with all of us, on our good days, when we sally forth into the world to love our neighbor as ourselves and to live and to call others to live lives rooted in the freedom of love freely given and freely shared. And God is with us when the grief suddenly hits us out of nowhere. When the world seems dark and scary and we huddle in blanket forts and watch escapist TV and sing Christmas carols in September. When we worry about whether our love is good enough and whether our hearts are broken by the holy innocence of this world. And we join Rachel in weeping for our children. So, as we celebrate this Christmas season and prepare ourselves for the epiphanies to come, let's remember that God doesn't need us or our world to be ideal. We don't have to hide our broken parts and pretend that everything is fine while singing comforting Christmas carols. God will meet us in our sorrow, in our anger, and in our exhaustion, and fill us with grace so that we can live and love and fight another day. God is with us, all of us. Thanks be to God. Amen.